Having resigned myself to larger lenses after purchasing the lovely Sigma 16mm f1.4 for art gallery use, I decided to update Sony's 16-50mm f3.5 to f5.6 with their 18 to 105mm f4 for when extra reach is required in better light, in a sculpture park for example. Attired for a cold November Norwich day, I exited the station into Mediterranean heat. Well, it was too warm for gloves. The University of East Anglia campus housing the sculpture park lies a 3.4-mile wander from the train station. It's possible to catch one of the frequent buses outside the station to the campus, but then you wouldn't stumble upon Chapelfield Gardens bandstand. And though not my favourite bandstand, it is a bandstand, and bandstands are cool.
The UEA campus is situated in the former grounds of Earlham Hall, once home of prison reformer Elizabeth Fry, and the campus hosts a building bearing her name. Work commenced in 1961 under Dennis Lasden, an advocate of brutalist architecture. One of his designs, ziggurats, utilised for residential purposes, can be seen behind Ian Tyson's proximity sculpture. Unfortunately, so can an Anthony Gormley sculpture. Lasden was also responsible for the equally brutalist National Theatre on London's South Bank.
See, these videos are educational and not just an excuse to poke fun at idiot Team Sky believers. After nearly 2 hours distracted wandering, the sculpture park was reached, where the weather consisted of broken clouds, allowing one to shoot footage without an ND filter, which is a good thing, because I don't possess any. Real men shun ND filters, stop down to f16, increase shutter speed and hope for the best. Augmenting the permanent sculptures during this visit were 4 Lynn Chadwick works: Beast Alerted 1, Crouching Beast 2, Lion 1, and Pair of Walking Figures Jubilee. Back to the lens. I thought the Sigma was heavy, but goodness, the 18 to 105 is even heavier. The stated 427 grams opposed to the Sigma's 380 doesn't sound much, but having walked from King's Cross Station to Whitekew Bermondsey the other day with a Sony mounted, swapping to the Sigma was an obvious and welcome change. The weight may not be an issue if utilising a neck strap, but as mentioned in other videos, I prefer wrist straps. Lengthwise, there's a 20mm plus difference, flaring outwards to a 72mm filter compared to the Sigma's 67mm filter. These two design elements result in greater imbalance than the Sigma and more wrist strain, especially during pans. f4 is slow, there's no getting around that, and if separation and low light performance is required, perhaps this lens is not the correct choice. But the power zoom and constant aperture provide video-friendly attributes. Addressing the power zoom, it's rubbish. Not the zoom itself, but the switch. It lacks finesse and touch. The further you slide it, the faster the zoom, which is fine, but it's impossible to keep the lens steady while activating it handheld or gimbal mounted due to the switch's resistance. Notice the wobble at the end of this zoom upon releasing the switch. That's okay, use the Sony app to zoom, removing camera contact. Nope, the app is rubbish too. Zooming via it is too slow and keeps stopping. Sony should be ashamed of their Play Memories app. This poor zoom control is a pity, because the constant aperture spanning the zoom range eliminates exposure shifts while transitioning from long shot to close up.
Daft Joey chatted up Big Evelyn, gave her a sovereign ring, told her it was worth £100. She took it round the corner here to a jeweller's on Chisholm Street, long gone now. They said it was worth about 40. She came back and told them to hop it.
An additional feature is the zoom being internal, a huge benefit for gimbal use, allowing the gimbal to be balanced once, where an extending zoom, like Sony's 18 to 155mm, requires rebalancing of the gimbal between the short and long end. Video autofocus is as I've become accustomed with Sony, too good to allow a jump back to Panasonic, illustrated by this walk around Lynn Chadwick's Lion 1. It clung on to the focus despite the challenging, shiny metal sculpture construction. Unlike the chirping Sigma, the 18 to 105 exhibits no discernible focus motor noise for the inbuilt mic to pick up when capturing video. But the Sony a6500 mic has a high noise threshold, and you'd only want to record audio directly as a last resort. My evaluation of distortion, or lack of, is how raw photos of framed artworks or artwork plaques are realised, and the 18 to 105 is very good, almost equaling the Sigma. Knife edge focal planes aren't possible with an f4 lens, but the 18 to 105 is a general purpose zoom lens and isn't masquerading as a bokeh beast. It will, however, provide a degree of separation. I always moan about Sony's IBIS on the a6500 because it's terrible for video work, with Panasonic's IBIS comfortably surpassing it. So incorporating stabilisation in the 18 to 105, which works in conjunction with IBIS, can only be a good thing. And standing on a very windy Waterloo Bridge panning from North Bank to South Bank produced quite stable results. Walking is still a waste of time, however. The Moser Aircross gimbal came along for the ride to Norwich, and after photographing the sculptures handheld, was employed filming them. Battery life on the Moser is usually most pleasing, and spending a day shooting in Glasgow for the Glasgow Wandering 2 video with the Sony a6500 and 20mm f2.8 lens atop barely depleted the power reserves. Back in Norwich, the extra weight left me scowling at a limp gimbal by 4:30 PM, forcing the indignity of shooting Foundry Bridge handheld. The battery performance was my fault. Being such a large lens, I was mindful of damaging it by the lens swinging about with gay abandon and hitting the unforgiving metal structure of the Moser, so kept the gimbal activated for several miles walking, working the motors like a capitalist pig dog works their employees. Tarquin claims. It goes against the grain to praise Sony. They're a horrible company with their proprietary nonsense and anti-consumer ways. But this is an impressive lens. If I didn't need faster lenses for art gallery shooting, the 18 to 105 could serve as my sole lens. The only gripes I have are like the Sigma, it's too large and too heavy. While making this video, I was reminded no one does disdain and disapproval like a Glasgow girl.
Aye, alright, you'd be handy in a quiz maybe, but I'm no interested, so get lost.